Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
Joel, why won't you just delete your code? Just delete it. Just delete your code, Joel. Just highlight it, delete it, commit. I don't want to even see it anymore, Joel. Get it out of here.
I am being targeted here unfairly, but I know where you're coming from. And Aaron is diplomatically yelling at me because we're friends, and I will take it. But the reality is this is a thing that we bump into a lot, and we will protect the names of any innocent. And if you've worked with us and you're listening to this and you think we're talking about you, we might be, but we're probably also talking about everybody else we've worked with. So don't take it personally.
Yeah.
But anyways, to the topic at hand, your exasperation at not deleted. Okay, so let me set this up. So hey, Aaron, I need you to work on this controller. We want to update something, and can you go refactor this? And then you open it up, and there's 75 lines of commented out code. And
that's just the smell. That's
okay.
great. That's obvious.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about something that is the real reason why this drives me nuts.
Okay, let's dig into it.
Let's talk about the difference between you're in a project forever versus you're hiring on a new developer versus you're hiring on consultants, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of context. There's a lot of stuff built up in your project. I understand that. I get that. That's valuable. That's necessary. That's something, all that history stuff that maybe even AI tools can't figure out now. And we don't want to lose that. But that's in the person. That doesn't necessarily need to be in that code. Okay. Now, the reason why I run into this issue is, so let's just say you're coming into a new project or it's a section of the code base you haven't really worked with before, and someone says, I need you to update the fight fires component. And for fighting fires now, V2 has to have the garbage can on it. And I'm like, okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to search for fight fires. I'm going to search for garbage can. Right. Like in the code base, because I don't really even know what most of those things mean. Yeah. Like I get it. I can kind of figure it out, but I want to see the code patterns. I want to see, like, is there any other garbage can icons? Because I think that's what you mean. You know, if everywhere else has a garbage can icon and then there's just like one delete button on the component I'm looking at, I get it. You mean you want to have that delete turn into a garbage can. Perfect. Makes sense. Now here's the problem. When I do that search and I run into 37 results, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot of garbage cans and there's a lot of fight fires around here. And I'm starting to look through this in my, editor or however I've done my findings. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, well, okay, so I've searched out, I'm trying to do the pattern. There is 27 garbage cans and there's 6 delete buttons. Well, okay, no, there isn't 6 delete buttons. There's only 1 delete button. Why do I think there's 6? Oh, because all the other ones that I found above it and below them are commented out. But in my search, I'm just finding a line where it's labeled as garbage can. Yeah. So again, I have to look at each one of those even further to figure out, well, is this even in use? Is this code in use? Turns out I found 27 and 6. Really, I found 27 and 1 because the other ones should have just been deleted, so I didn't find them again in my search. So that's just the basic idea, and then if you want to extend that further, it's like, okay, well, what is the fight fires module? Well, there used to be an old one that we just commented out. We're just keeping around for later. No, that's what you have Git for. If you want to find it, you can bisect to find out when you've removed it. You can do all these different things. So I know I've just kind of rambled on here, but I wanted to make sure that it's not about seeing the code commented out. Yeah. That's ugly, but I don't really care about that. I care that it's slowing me down. I'm trying to solve something for you.
Yeah. And I'll even go one step further because I've experienced that pain. Sometimes that V1 module isn't even commented out. There just nothing calls it, right? It's still in the folder. It looks like a real component. Same thing, we're talking components. It could be controllers. Nothing's wired up to it. There's no routes wired up to it. There's nothing else is calling into it. So it really looks like real code, but you need that extra knowledge or that extra time, which is what you're talking about, to go figure that out. And that we're just trying to save you money. If you're hiring us, right? You want us to be more efficient. Like this might sound like we're being selfish because we probably, Aaron, I'll admit, we probably join more projects than maybe the average Laravel developer listening to us complain right now. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because that's the nature of our work. We join projects, but it really, I think we can make the case too. Like, even if you're on that team day in, day out, it's slowing you down and it's confusing you too, right? I mean, this isn't just about us. Like, we're exasperated, but we feel the pain maybe more acutely, but it affects the team too.
Well, and kind of like I alluded to, I mentioned AI and those things in general. What I've just seen is I just described what I would do before AI. So I did the searches and stuff. Well,
Yeah,
now AI is doing that searching. And yeah, maybe it's smart enough to search a couple lines around it, but maybe it's not. Maybe it
maybe.
doesn't know that, so you're not only slowing down yourself, you're burning up more tokens if you're into that sort of
Ooh,
thing. You're costing yourself more money because this agent is going to find all those different things and have to determine that, oh, those are not in use. Or the other thing I run into is like security updates and stuff. Like, okay,
yeah.
well, we have this library and an automated scanner found it. Well, turns out no one's actually visiting that. And yeah, it is a problem, but it
Hmm.
shouldn't even be a problem because all that code should be deleted.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's all sorts of liabilities and things here. But so in the midst of your eloquent ramble, you were you threw out the words "git bisect," and I
Yeah.
think it's worth talking about that a little bit more because maybe like the biggest pushback I've gotten from people about not deleting dead or commented out code is like I want that as a reference. I want to find it. Like, I might need it later. And I always like, well, you have Git. That's like why we have this. But then the follow-up question is like, well, how do I find it? Like, I don't know what to
Yeah.
do. Right. So Git bisect is the tool. Do you want to talk about that or do you want me to riff on it a little bit?
Well, you jumped ahead a little bit there. Is
Okay.
more often than not, the pushback is not how do I find it? It's just more guttural than that. Like I say
Mm,
delete this code, and the person says no because that I need that code.
right.
Like it doesn't. How would I ever find it again? They haven't gotten that far. And when you say
Right.
get, it's like well, then you mentioned get. It's like oh, well, then it's difficult to find inside of get. I get that.
Yeah.
But the first step is like if someone says to you like, hey, there's something I want you to change, the answer isn't no, I can't. It's like oh, tell me some alternatives, some options to that. Okay, I
Yes.
get it. I don't understand your point of view right now. I don't see why you're trying to tell me to delete this code. But what would I do in this case then when I need to find that again? I'm willing
Mm,
to delete this code because you're saying it's a good idea, but what would I do? See, that's a totally different conversation, and it
yeah.
allows someone, a senior developer to teach you or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, like you're saying, maybe, and it's like a pattern that's been so well established in your project. And maybe you don't even feel like it's slowing you down. So, like, what's the harm, man? Just leave it there.
Yeah.
But like like you said, open mind. Okay, thought experiment. What if I did delete it? And what if I did actually need it? Which you probably won't, but that's beside the point.
Mhm.
How would I find it? And that's like the next logical place to take it. But yeah, you're not shutting that door.
I would also say, I'm sure everyone in the world is going to argue with me when I say this,
Good.
but I have never really that confidently seen something that I've commented out and then a year later looked at that code and been like, yeah, I need that. Because the project
I
has moved
know.
on so far past
Yes.
that. And also, you're learning if you're a good developer, which everyone that's listening to this podcast probably is, you've learned how to do stuff better. So that code isn't how you do it anymore. And maybe that business domain isn't the same anymore.
Right.
So you probably don't need it. You're just being paranoid. But if you do need it, there's Git bisect or there's Git log and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Joel, you can talk a little bit more about it. I'm just talking so much here, and no one wants to hear me ranting even more.
First of all, I like your pandering, how you said that everybody listening is a smart developer. Well played. I like that. Yeah, and I'm not going to get deep into the weeds, but like Git bisect is like a way of searching a commit history in an efficient manner, where it kind of like it picks like I think it picks like a halfway point between, if you said like, hey, in the last year, I'm looking for this piece of code that was deleted, you'd have to create a little test to say like, well, what was the name of the method you think or the file name, and then Git would run that for you and kind of jump to like the midpoint. Was it there? No. Okay, I got to go back further, and it would do all this work. But honestly, like I think now, especially with these fancy coding agents we have, like it can do that work for you. Like you don't even have to know how Git bisect works effectively. You just need to know it's a thing, and then you can ask Claude or whatever you're using to go do that for you and find it for you. And I actually did this as an experiment. Like there's a tip I wrote up about it on Mastering Laravel if you really care to go find it. And it worked surprisingly well. I used one of these
Mhm.
scenarios where there was something that was deleted, like in a project we had been on for a while. And I just gave it like, I don't know when this was deleted. I don't know exactly what the file name was. Here's what I think it was. It was some change we'd made to like how Stripe worked. And it found it. it had found it in like 4 minutes, right? And so
Right.
like that proved to me that the argument we're making is compelling, especially with these coding agents, is you can find that if you really need to find it if you're using Git. And I hope you're using Git. I hope everybody's using version control. Like even if it's not Git, but it should be Git.
So I want to make sure though that there's one little nuance that isn't lost here. I do from time to time comment out code before I've committed while I'm working through something. And so like I might have a block of code that I'm rewriting. I might just rewrite it in place, or I might comment it out so I can see it on my editor and rewrite the code right below it. But then I remove the commented out code once I know it's working or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's always horrible to comment something out. We're talking about keeping that for a duration of time. Yes. And I'm also not talking about comments being bad either, because comments are great. They help you describe stuff. It's specifically targeted at, I think I might need this code later, but it's not running now, and I don't want it around. Whether it's commented out or just like a menu item removed, and hopefully no one figures that out.
Yeah, no, that's a good nuance, because we're certainly not against comments or like the temporary. I think I do this sometimes when I'm writing tests. If I want to prove to myself I'm testing what I think I'm testing, I'll actually go comment out like one line of code under test, watch my test fail. It's like, okay, all right, I am actually testing what I think I'm testing. So yeah, we comment stuff out all the time. Just please don't commit it like that, right?
Yeah. So overall, in general, obviously, I'm not that angry. I started out the podcast, just yelling and rambling, but it's a little bit for helping me, but it's a lot for helping the project, right?
Yes.
It's a thing that makes my job easier, but it's a thing I'd argue that makes everyone on a project's job easier as well.
So reasonable. I love it. I want to run you through a couple common phrases and see what you think.
Like that first one you just used there?
Sure. So if I said, hey, Aaron, have a nice day. Friendly, right?
Yeah. I mean, depending on your facial expression.
True. You could say it ultra sarcastically, but in general.
Or tone. And you better have a nice day.
Right. But yeah, if we just had like a nice interaction.
Yep.
We're about to part ways. Hey, have a nice day.
Thanks, Joel. You too.
I could go a step further. It's Friday, let's say. And I'm like, Aaron, have a nice weekend, right? I'm giving you 2 days. I want you to have.
Whoa, and possibly 2.5 because it's still Friday. So thank you.
But now if I say have a nice life, isn't that just like inherently like rude? Even though I'm like, if you follow the logic, I don't know. It's just like I had that observation the other day because I was with somebody. And they said, have a nice weekend. And it was Thursday. And they're like, oh, man, I'm an idiot. I said, have a nice week. I'm like, no, you give them an extra day. And I'm like, you could have gone all the way and just said, have a nice life. But then, like, as I said it, I'm like, oh, no, that would be kind of ominous. Like, am I right, though? Like, if I said, hey, have a nice life. It's like, I'm never going to talk to you again. Or what? Why is that bad?
Yeah, it sounds like a goodbye or even I constantly go to the threat level.
Right.
But have a nice life. But yeah, in general, it just sounds like, okay, well, it was great to meet you. I'll never see you again. Have a nice life. Like the waiter at a restaurant over in a different country you'll never be to again.
Exactly. So just use that with caution. I have yet to find a scenario where have a nice life will come across good.
Have a good decade, Joel. Deleting code is awesome. And, well, it's a little scary too. But it's not so bad if you have good test coverage.
And we can help with that. If you want to get better at writing confident tests, head over to masteringLaravel.io, click on courses, and check out our testing workshop.